Okay, so we're going to take a few minutes to take a look at that lab write-up that I gave you, the standard lab format. How you get to that is go to mytylerbiology.com, and you can always click on how to write a lab write-up. And you have a hard copy of this. So the first thing, I'm just going to quickly go through each one of these: title, purpose, let you know what I expect for each one of them. So in the title, your title should include independent and dependent variable. So you don't give the name of the lab, you actually make the name of the lab using your independent and dependent variable. So under problem or purpose, it's worth 2 points, a couple sentences. What's the purpose of doing this lab? So maybe how is the independent affecting the dependent variable? You're going to be writing in background form, writing in paragraph form for the background. This is a little bit tricky. This is any of the things that I should know about your lab ahead of before I start reading it. For example, for the diffusion and osmosis lab, I'm expecting to see some things about what is diffusion, what's osmosis, what's water potential mean, some of the basic underlying concepts that we've been learning about should be talked about in this background information, so that a reader would be able to understand what you're trying to prove or trying to provide data about. So this is where you would include formulas, equations, maybe some new vocabulary. Obviously diffusion, osmosis, water potential are things that definitely should be included in this lab. Under hypothesis, you should have an if-then statement. If the independent variable, then the dependent variable. So you're going to be using those two things in the if-then statement. You're really basically taking this educated guess about what you think is going to happen. Under experimental design, this is super important. It's worth 2 points. Independent variable, ... what is it? Dependent variable, ... what is it? You're also going to do controls. So the controls mean control group, also controlled variables. So what are the things that you kept the same, constants, and what control group? So this is super important. So you're going to have 4 things here. You're going to have independent variable, dependent variable, control group, if you have one, and controlled variables or constants. And that's what we mean by controls. So there's 4 things that should be in there. I don't want you to lose a point for not having all those things. You put a quick list of materials. For this lab, it'll be the potato stuff. So what did you use for the potato and the colored mixtures? And then a brief procedure about what you chose to do. So let's going on to the next. Once you have data, you're going to have your quantitative data and your qualitative data. So some things that maybe you have observations. I think I remember one group having some unique observations that they saw the potato core doing during the lab. Also, in here, you should have a data table and a graph for almost every lab that we do. Just expect to have those 2 things under here. For this lab, you also need to include in your data the other 3 parts of the lab that we're not writing up formally. So you should have the surface area and cell, what happened, maybe some pictures of what the 3 of your cell types were with their surface area and volume. You're going to have the diffusion and osmosis with the egg white and all those 4 pairs. So maybe you have a little picture of what those things are, and maybe a little chart that says what happened on that. So I want just a little bit on those 3 parts. The third one is the living cell, what happens when you put salt water on it. So I would like to have pictures of those 3 things under your data. So that's what you should have for data. That's 6 points. And I think for this lab, I'm going to make that a little bit more because you have 3 extra parts in your data for that. The discussion analysis, you're going to be writing 3 paragraphs. That's really important, in addition to having answers to the questions from the lab book. So you're having 3 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, explain the results using evidence from the data, and you need to use data to support your findings. It's really important. If you don't use data to support your findings, you're going to lose a point here. In the second paragraph, you're going to identify trends and explain why you think that is true. The third paragraph identifies errors and reasons or sources for the error. And then the next part is the answers to the question for the lab book. At this point, I'm going to pop over to the lab book to show you which questions you're going to have to answer. So in step 2 on page S56, I want you to answer these 3 questions. Okay, so these 3 questions, hopefully you're taking notes on this. So it's page S56, the top 3 questions. Then if you go to page S58, which is right here, I want you to answer this question. I'm sorry, just this first one, right here. And the very last one, how is the dialysis tubing functionally different from the cellular membrane? So just these 2, the first one and the last one here. And then down, if you scroll down a little bit, I want all 3 of these questions here. So on page S58, you're going to have 5 questions to answer. And many have already answered these, so it's not like too big of a deal. If you go to S59, I would like for you to answer these 2 questions right here. How would you calculate the water potential in the cells, and which solution had water potential equal to that of the plant cells? So I'd like to have that answered. And lastly, and most importantly, are these 3 analysis results questions. Every time we do a lab, we're always going to be answering these, the analyzing results questions. I've just added some extra questions from the previous pages for you. So that's part of analysis, and we're going to go back to the lab write-up right now. And we're going to look at what you do for a conclusion. This is 3 points. It's 3 in 3 short paragraphs, very short, and they have to be done exactly like this. In the first paragraph, you restate the purpose and the hypothesis. That means you restate it. Say it again. State whether or not the hypothesis was supported. This is not where you say, oh, I'm right or I'm wrong. No, you want to say, my hypothesis was supported, and you give evidence for why you think that is true. Second paragraph, see, it's quick, a couple sentences. I don't need to have a book. The second paragraph should have 1 example about how the concepts learned relate to real life. How does this relate to real life? And the third paragraph, I want to see some recommendations for more investigation. So hopefully this inquiry has caused you to think about other things. And what are some other things that you could further investigate regarding this topic? Okay, well, that is it. I'm going to just briefly tell you again which questions that you have to do. There are 3 questions on page S56, 5 questions on S58, 2 on S59, and 3 on S60. And if you want, you can just back up the thing and make sure you go back and look at that. Oh, in addition to the analysis questions, these analyzing results questions. So good luck, and hopefully you get started tonight.